Hi, thanks for tuning in. I'm Nomax, and today I will be breaking down the music of WandaVision. I'm going to cover everything I noticed about the soundtrack in chronological order, meaning that there's some cool stuff near the end of this video, so stick around and subscribe while you're here. Together, Wanda and Vision have their own motif that is used throughout the show in the sitcom reality. In this motif, there is a particular interval that the writers used because of its peculiar musical quality. This is called the tritone, but it's also widely known as the Devil's Interval. However, there are a lot of misconceptions about its history. Yes, society has named it the Devil's Interval, but its history is not nearly as cool as some people make it out to be. The only reason it's called the Devil's Interval is because of a questionable interpretation of a source from the 18th century. If you want to know more about this, you should definitely check out Adam Neely's video on this topic. To counter the fact that having a different theme song in every episode kind of defeats the purpose of having one in the first place, which is to get stuck in your head and function as free advertising for the show, the writers decided to use the WandaVision motif in all theme songs. And when it is revealed that it was Agatha all along, the context of this motif changes from a major key to a minor key, to emphasize the dissonance of the WandaVision motif that's been there from the very beginning. Musical elements from these theme songs find their way into the musical bodies for the rest of the sitcom parts too. In this musical body, I stumbled on the first musical Easter egg. In episode 1, right after Wanda says it's time to improvise, you hear the following, which is a nod to the Dies Irae. The Dies Irae is a Gregorian funeral chant created around the 13th century, widely used in movies today, where it is associated with death. And wouldn't you know, Mr. Hart nearly dies later in this episode. At the end of the first episode, when Wanda creates her own rings, we are introduced to Wanda and Vision's love theme. I think this is a variation of the track Celestial Bodies from Captain America Civil War soundtrack. It plays when Wanda and Vision are talking in the kitchen. It uses the exact same 3 notes, just in a slightly different order. The love theme is not only used in the sitcom reality, but eventually also outside of it. It's used throughout the entire series, functioning as a theme that bridges the gap. My favorite rendition of this love theme is Genesis, the track that plays at the end of episode 8 when Wanda drives into Westview for the first time. In episode 2, when the beekeeper from S.W.O.R.D appears, it's the first time we hear S.W.O.Rd's motif. This motif is used in nearly all episodes whenever S.W.O.R.D comes into the picture. To give you an idea of how it sounds once the perspective changes to swords, here's this track from episode 4. In episode 3, when Vision walked back inside after seeing Herb cut through the wall, you hear the track The Strangest Thing. Now, I don't want to focus on the melody here. This is the only track in the entire series to feature the harpsichord, and I think it's meant as a fun little nod to the soundtrack from Doctor Strange that features the harpsichord as well, hence the name The Strangest Thing. Next up is a musical Easter egg in the Hydra soak commercial from episode 3. This is a reference to the motif used in previous MCU movies to represent the Tesseract. You probably recognize it from the opening of the Avengers. At the beginning of episode 4, we're introduced to Monica's motif, right as she wakes up. This motif is used throughout the series whenever Monica is in the picture, and of course that includes the moment when she turns into what many people believe to be Photon. In this episode, it's also the first time we hear Wanda's theme during the episode instead of in the credits, and it plays at a crucial moment. That is the moment when Darcy detects a colossal amount of CMBR, musically telling us who's responsible. But one moment that I also think is worth mentioning is in episode 5, where it plays right before Wanda comes out of the hex, yet again musically foreshadowing her appearance. Later in episode 4, when they are trying to figure out who the players are, we hear the following. I think this might be a reference to the motif from Ant-Man and the Wasp in the track Feds that plays about 1 hour into the movie when Jimmy Woo checks up on Scott's whereabouts. At the end of episode 5, we're introduced to the motif used to represent fake Pietro. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any musical references to, for example, the X-Men movies, but maybe those more familiar with the franchise might be able to find something. The Pietro motif is used a couple more times in the next few episodes, such as when Wanda sees Pietro as a corpse in episode 6. In episode 6, we're introduced to Vision's motif. Vision's motif obviously appears quite a lot in the last 4 episodes, and it's super effective. It's also used when we are introduced to White Vision in episode 8. We hear almost the exact same motif, but it ends on a very dissonant note. In episode 7, when Wanda is in Agnes' house, we are introduced to the motif for Agatha Harkness. This motif is used in the last 2 episodes as well, but I think its best use is in episode 8, when Agatha starts draining her fellow witches from power back in 1693. In episode 8, when Wanda relives a part of her childhood in Sokovia, we hear a cello play the following. I think this is a reference to Avengers Age of Ultron. And right after that, we relive Wanda's Hydra days, and we hear the following. This is a reference to a motif used in the first Ant-Man movie when Darren Cross talks about selling his yellow jackets to Hydra. And of course, when Wanda relives her time in the Avengers compound, we hear the Avengers Motif, but it sounds very dark and ominous. In the final episode, when Wanda and Vision are tucking in their children, you hear the following. This is a callback to the track Ode to Sparky from episode 5 after Sparky died and Wanda says she can't bring back the dead. In the last post-credit scene, while the camera hones in on Wanda, we hear a cello play the following. This is a variation of the Sokovian Lullaby Wanda sang in episode 3. Now last but not least, right before the last episode ends, when we see Wanda reading the Darkhold, we hear the following. This is a reference to the theme of Doctor Strange. Teasing us with what's next for the MCU. I hope the MCU can even further improve their musical cohesion, but if WandaVision is an indication of what's to come on that front, the future sure looks bright. I hope you enjoyed this video, comment down below if you think I missed any musical details. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for the next one.